This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. Delighted as always to be joined by Kevin Barry from Las Vegas. How are you, Kev? Nice to see you.
Rob, I'm great, mate, and it's always a pleasure of mine to be on Boxing Social with you, my good friend. And I'm happy to see you looking so well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I've kept.
Hey, you scared us a little bit for a while, pal.
Yes, but I'm back fighting fit now-ish. So yeah, thank you very much for that. Always a pleasure to catch up with you too. Particularly on the back of such a big weekend of boxing. We spoke about it last week, Joshua Usyk, between us. Talk to me about that fight on Saturday night. It was some spectacle.
It really was. And I was really looking forward to this fight. For me personally, this was one of the fights of the year. A lot of people had written Usyk off on his two early performances, the Chaz Witherspoon fight where he was still making the adjustment into the heavyweight division. A lot of people thought he looked sloppy against Chisora. And I think, the AJ's team and maybe the AJ fans were thinking, God, look, if he can't get Chisora out of there, if AJ was to fight Chisora, he'd belt him. This is, he's going to walk through this guy. But you and I both knew that the quality, the experience, the boxing IQ, this was always going to be the best skillful fighter that AJ would ever share a ring with. And it certainly showed out to be.
It certainly did. And it didn't take very long in the fight for that to be pretty apparent. The first round, Alexander Usyk landed that southpaw backhand 2 or 3 times. Just how significant was that for him to make such a positive start?
I tell you what, landing that first straight left 40 seconds into the first round, finding his distance so early in the fight was very, very comforting for the Usyk team and very disturbing for the Joshua camp. They thought that Joshua's height and reach would be an advantage. Obviously, they thought his power was going to be too much for the smaller Usyk, but the fact that he was able to find his distance so early was a real confidence booster. And he just once he got that distance, he just went to work. And he won the first 4 rounds, definitely the first 3 rounds convincingly. I gave him the 4th, but I was also a little bit worried about the UK officials. And I was thinking, if you were going to give a Joshua a round, you might have given him the 4th. To Joshua's credit, he made an adjustment in the 5th and 6th, and he won the 5th and 6th rounds. He landed a couple of nice straight right hands, and this is what he had to do earlier in the fight. He had to get that right hand on Usyk's chin. He had to show him, look, I am the bigger guy, the stronger guy, and I'm going to hit you with my right hand. So rounds 5 and 6, the tide was starting to turn. And for me, round 7 was the most pivotal round of the fight. Because if Joshua had carried on with that momentum from rounds 5 and 6 into 7, I think it might have been a different fight. But Usyk, being the quality, experienced guy of 350 amateur fights, they made the adjustment in the corner. He came out, he landed a big left hand in the 7th round, won the 7th round convincingly, stopped the momentum of Joshua. And for me, that changed the fight.
I agree. I think you make a great point there. It's a point that we made on our live show the Sunday after the fight, the 7th round being a critical round in the fight. After that, the fight really kind of was one-sided, particularly in the championship rounds later on in the fight. Alexander Usyk, not content being apparently ahead in the fight, really rubber-stamped the performance, particularly in those championship rounds.
Look, 100%. But look, firstly, let's not write Joshua off, because rounds 8 and 9, he fought pretty damn good. In fact, I could have given him the 8th and the 9th. He showed a few different punches that we hadn't seen before. A nice little right uppercut to the body, which he landed 3 or 4 times, but especially once, and I think it was the 9th round, he hit Usyk with it, and Usyk went backwards because he definitely felt it and sort of moved around a little bit to recover. So I thought, okay, this fight's going to be a better fight than what we initially thought. But I tell you what, for me, it was the work rate that Usyk set in the beginning of the fight. By the championship rounds, I think Joshua was spent. Even with good rounds 8 and 9, I don't think he had anything left in the tank. And Usyk got his second wind and just ran away with it, you know, winning 10, 11, and 12 convincingly. Look, it was a masterful performance. It was almost like he was always in front of Joshua, but never in front of him. It was just class boxing at its best, and I think, you know, AJ was totally schooled in this fight.
You mentioned about not writing Anthony Joshua off. I spoke to Alex Krasiuk, of course, Usyk's promoter from K2 Promotions. He confirmed that the rematch clause has been activated by Anthony Joshua. They are preparing for that rematch as we speak. What does Anthony Joshua need to do in that rematch that he didn't do on Saturday night?
Well, mate, simply, he needs to be more aggressive. He's got to come forward. He's got to use his size. He's got to use his strength. He can't get into a boxing match with an elite boxer like Alexander Usyk. You know, as soon as he was trying to box with them, and, you know, he actually said he'd done all this, you know, fast boxing work, fast feet drills. He had fine down. He hadn't done any pad work, if you believe that, but was concentrating on the heavy bag. Maybe he should have done more pad work. You know, the thing is, like, you know, his timing wasn't there, and it probably also wasn't there because Usyk didn't allow it to be there. But, you know, Joshua has to be able to touch him with the jab and hit him with the right hand. You know, he will never, ever outbox Alexander Usyk. He's got to take him into a gunfight and get that big right hand cannon working. So look, he simply has to work the jab more, touch him with the jab, and hit him with the right hand.
On the flip side, that's what Anthony Joshua has to do in a rematch. But Alexander Usyk is going to take an immense amount of confidence from that first fight and take that into a rematch as well.
100%. Look, you know, if you look at Joshua saying, I've learned a lot from this fight, that's why I want to exercise the rematch straight away. The person who will gain the most benefit from that fight is Alexander Usyk. There is no doubt about that. When you go back and you look at the Witherspoon fight, you look at the Chisora fight, you look at the guy that fought Joshua, it was a totally different animal altogether. Now that guy, his body looked solid in the weigh-in. It wasn't a guy who was still trying to grow into the heavyweight division. He looked like a heavyweight. He was a big, solid guy. The other thing that I thought was really a little bit puzzling is people have to remember that during those 350 amateur fights that Usyk had, he fought plenty of guys the size of Anthony Joshua and bigger, you know, especially in the World Boxing Series. You know, there were a lot, the Joe Joyces and guys like that who he beat easily in the amateurs, big guys. And then you look at when he teamed up with the Klitschko brothers, you know that he had sparred hundreds of rounds with Vladimir Klitschko. So look, it was no surprise for him, you know, to get in there and to be able to touch Joshua like he did.
Before we come on to talking about next weekend's heavyweight fight in Las Vegas, where does this win now elevate Alexander Usyk in the heavyweight division? You've got before the fight, you had the kind of the established big three, if you will, of Joshua, Wilder, Fury. Right. He's just beaten Joshua in an emphatic fashion. Where does that put Usyk now?
Well, obviously, it's got to put him right underneath Tyson Fury. But like, you know, we were all thinking and licking our lips with the hope of Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, both guys taking care of business, getting $100 million each to fight in Saudi Arabia, for us to have a 4-belt heavyweight champion. Well, that's not going to happen. You know, that's not going to happen at the moment. And the most important thing for Tyson Fury is that he needs to realize, as convincing as he was in the second fight, you know, he's got a dangerous real live guy in front of him on October the 9th, you know, and he has to be able to take care of business. But when you ask the ranking, I have Tyson Fury at 1. You have to have Alexander Usyk at 2. And who knows, 18 months time, 2 years, that could be the big fight that we're all licking our lips for. The two great boxers in the ring together.
leads us on nicely to that fight next weekend, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. We won't touch too much on it because young Andy Purrawell of Boxing Social will be in Las Vegas next week to catch up with you and discuss it in further detail.
Nice.
But Tyson Fury is somebody that you've had in your gym for, over the years, but I believe he's in your gym right now sparring.
He's sparring in about 15 minutes time.
How's he been getting on?
He's good. Tyson's in good shape. Obviously, he was gutted with the result over the weekend. He wanted nothing more than to get Anthony Joshua in the ring. And I think when we saw Joshua miss with so many punches against Usyk, a masterful southpaw who's 6'3", when you look at Tyson at 6'9", with his herky-jerky style and his boxing IQ, I don't, and I said this for the last 2 or 3 years, that Joshua wouldn't lay a glove on Tyson. And I think we all know that now. I think we accept that now. Look, Tyson's in good shape, but he's got a big job on his hands. Obviously in his mind, he's very, very confident. He thinks he's gonna bash Wilder again. I think we will see a very motivated Deontay Wilder, a Deontay Wilder who's fighting for his career. He gets knocked out in this fight. There's a long way back. There's nowhere to go. He was embarrassed in the second fight, and he wants to try and restore that credibility. He wants to get a bit of mana back. But the most important thing that I think, Rob, is Wilder needs to be honest to himself about the loss in fight 2. For the last 9 months, blaming your trainer, blaming the outfit you wore to the ring, blaming the referee, blaming the gloves. Come on, take ownership of your loss, and you can move on from there and correct the things. That's my biggest concern for Wilder. We know with the change of trainers, Malik Scott will bring a lot of passion and a lot of enthusiasm into the Wilder camp. Wilder looks to be in great shape, but when you're fighting for your boxing legacy and your boxing credibility, and you've just been embarrassed more than any other time in your life, you better be ready. You better be in shape. But Tyson Fury's a very special, very unique fighter, and who rises to the occasion for the big fights. And I like Tyson. I like him a lot.
Final word on Wilder Fury 3, or Fury Wilder 3 as it's now billed, next weekend. Just your prediction. It took 7 rounds in the last fight. It was a majority draw in the first fight. What's your prediction? Your our customary Kevin Barry, Rob Tebbutt beer bet. Even though I don't drink, which one's it going to be?
Okay, well, look, I think I've already said that. I'm a Tyson guy. I like his skill. I like that he, at 6'9", he does things that welterweights and lightweights do. There is no other heavyweight in the world who can slip and roll a punch like Tyson. I think if he goes after him again, I don't want to see him go after him too early. I want to see him, get the jab going, control the distance. But I think after that, I think he can get him out of there again.
Okay. Well, Kevin Barry, always a pleasure catching up, both this week and obviously in the past. Look forward to catching up with you soon. I believe Mr. Biden is opening up to us rowdy Brits at the start of November. So I'm sure I'll see you at some point in Las Vegas before the end of the year.
Well, mate, I hope you do. We're going to get you here. It's a shame you weren't here in the summer times. Then you and I could sit out with some of these pool parties and crush a few cold beers.
Yeah, I hear Taylor knows where all the good parties are.
Yeah, he's our party guy.
Okay, Kev, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social.
Thanks for having me on Boxing Social, my man.
I'll catch up with you soon.
See you.